What's going on, everybody, and welcome into Hog Hoops Live. Curtis Wilkerson here, joined as always by L-Ellis with HawgSports.com. Today is our annual holiday mailbag episode, which means the show will be only as good as our viewers make it. If you have questions for us about, Arkansas basketball, anything Razorback related, heck, anything in general, really, just throw them in the chat here and we will tackle as many of those as we can get to. The ball is in your court, so fire away. Let's go ahead and get this thing started. Okay. Andrew, I was fully prepared to come on this show and just place actual coal into a stocking if Arkansas was to lose that game last night. But hey, they figured it out. Still a ton to work on. Nice for the Hogs to hit the holiday on a high note. If folks want to talk real in depth about it, they can ask us. Reminder, get your questions in the chat because this is our Christmas mailbag show. But before we get rolling, just your general thoughts on a tale of two halves last night.
Well, I mean, we could do the same thing we keep doing after all these games where we're like, didn't look great, but maybe they'll figure it out, where it's like our big picture stance hasn't really changed at all. But Curtis, I think we got to cut right to it. The second half, it finally happened. What we've been asking for. Arkansas stuck with something. They had a rotation and they stuck with it. You know, Keyon, Menifield, Devo Davis, Trevon Mark, Caleb Battle, and Chandler Lawson. They mixed in Mackay and Jalen Graham here and there, but that 4-guard lineup that kind of carried them. And so that's kind of what we were hoping, that they would just pick something and stick to it. And it didn't quite look the way we thought. But I ask you, Curtis, is that lineup that you saw, is that, I guess, identity that was formed, and it clearly worked in this particular matchup? Are you buying that, like, this is the breakthrough Arkansas needed in the second half? Because obviously it was scored 55 points in the second half, really productive. And that lineup, it seemed like they unlocked something offensively in terms of just shot making and energy. But I guess I'll ask you, I'll turn it to you. Do you feel like that was a true turning point, or was that just what Arkansas needed to do to not get beat by Abilene Christian, who we agree sucks?
That was what Arkansas needed to do to not get beat by Abilene Christian, who is not very good. I'm with you, though. I think small ball could be, the thing that works for this team. But here's the thing, I don't think, no offense to Devo Davis, but I don't think he's going to be able to guard a bunch of SEC power forwards. Trevon Brazile's got to get going. So I love the small ball look. I thought Chandler Lawson was awesome in this game. He did everything they needed him to do at the center spot. And that 4-guard look, well, first of all, I love the Menifield, Battle, and Tremont Mark backcourt. That was nasty, man. And Devo did a great job on their 4-man. This team's only going to go as far as Trevon Brazile takes it. I really think it's super important for him to get it going. And I don't care if he starts or if he's the 6th man, whatever. I mean, he was the 6th man last year before he got injured, but he's got to be a major factor for this team. So listen, I think the 5 guys who were really rolling in the second half, I think they're pretty much locked in at this point, which is nice because you need to define that. Jalen Graham, I thought, did some good things for him off the bench. Whatever, if you want to get another guard involved, that's fantastic. But man, Trevon Brazile's got to get it going. I think that's probably priority number 1 for Arkansas over the holidays is to kind of get things figured out a little bit with him. But hey, they got the win. It was arguably the worst first half I've ever seen, but they turned it on, outscored them by 17 in the second half. They're 8-4. Let's before we get into some questions, I do need to give just a couple shout outs. First of all, shout out to you for that hoodie, because that thing is awesome, by the way. The Jingle Bells, Christmas lights theme there. I love it. Shout out to Abilene Christian. They are my new adopted mid-major team. And I'm going to tell you why, because I know you're traveling for the holidays right now. After the game, these guys came into Bud Walton, they had Arkansas on upset alert and they blew it in the second half. But afterwards, after the press conference, we're sitting in the media room, and one of their support staff members comes in and he just makes an announcement. He's like, "Hey, I'm not trying to interrupt anybody. Sorry, I know you're working, but we got a full buffet spread out here. And if you guys are hungry, come out and get you a plate." And so they had a full-on spread out there. They invited all of Arkansas media to come out there and eat. Even after the food was picked over, they had different snacks and all kinds of stuff out there. Abilene Christian, I love you. That was awesome.
So you're saying I missed The one time I'm not there, they have good food at Bud Walton Arena. That's what you're saying.
Listen, not only did you miss that, but the buffet spread from the University of Arkansas was those Hawaiian ham and cheese sliders. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So they had, dude. Listen, it was a good night in Bud Walton from that standpoint. So you did miss out, but hey, there's going to be a lot more opportunities. I don't know if it's going to get better than that though.
Yeah. I'm glad you brought up our Christmas stuff. I didn't know if we were just going to not address it at all. The fact that we're, in holiday clothes that we look great, but it is what it is. But yeah, I'm excited to do this. As anyone can tell, I'm not in my illustrious, beautiful studio that I'm normally in. I am in a. I guess we won't share our location, but it may or may not be my sister's pool house. We'll leave it at that.
Looks, hey, sister's pool house, Eric Musselman's pool house, whatever, man. We'll take it.
Yeah, Muscle be in here in a few minutes. He's just around the corner.
Yeah. Final shout out before we get rolling here. I gotta give a shout out to my grandmother, man, Miss Virginia Carricker. She turned 95 years old yesterday, and dude, she is still getting around and she's with it better than I am. She shares her birthday with my aunt and uncle who celebrated their 52nd anniversary also yesterday. So big shout out to all of them. They're down in McCrory until I believe Saturday. So if you're listening back home, get over there and say hi before she heads back to Branson. But I had to get that in there. Let's get into this, man. Let's see what all these crazies have on their mind today.
Yeah,
we'll start over.
They'll direct us better. We could sit here and ramble for an hour,
Dude.
But I feel like they're going to direct us better. Sometimes we need a little bit of,
we need some guidance today. Again, this show is going to be as good as the listeners make it. So we'll start on the Razor's Edge message board. We started a thread there for some Q&A, and then we'll pop over into the chat and see what we got here. But let me pull it up. Okay. This is a great start. We've got Pigley Mignon over on the message board. He says, how much does Muss weigh? Oh, never mind. Bob Holt asked that already. That was an epic moment, by the way.
But really bizarre moment, I would say. I mean, we got some detail. Look, I didn't know going into yesterday that I was going to find out exactly how much Keyon Menifield and Eric Musselman weigh, but I'm glad that I now know that information.
Here we are.
His response was hilarious when he was like, Keyon can fit into shirts that there's just no way I would fit into. He claims he's bigger than Keyon Menifield. So I kind of want to see those guys go one-on-one.
I do too. I will say, Menifield came up to the podium. He was still in his jersey or whatever, but like he's filled out a little bit more than he was when we saw him in the fall at that practice. I think he has put on a little bit of weight. I don't know if I'm buying the 160.
Tall. We talked about this last week, but Muss acting like he's like just a giant over here. I mean, just the height alone, like I feel like Keyon probably got him beat a little bit.
Yeah, so 141 pounds for Muss says that he's working on his cholesterol and calcium levels. So, well wishes for that. He seems like he's doing pretty damn well for his age, for sure. Okay, this one's for you. We'll kind of go back and forth here, but we got our man Alma Razorback over on the board. You're gonna like this one because I know you've been on this train for the entire season. His first question is playing small ball a sustainable path to success for Arkansas? The floor is yours.
It is for 1,000 reasons. One, I mean, we saw it work last night. Now again, we're saying, is this sustainable? Arkansas is not going to get to play Abilene Christian anymore, So I mean, it is what it is. But this wasn't even like last night wasn't even like peak small ball. I mean, the small ball that we keep talking about, again, you mentioned it, is the lineup that has Trevon Brazile at the 5. And you talked about how important Trevon is. That's why, because you want to have a sustainable small ball lineup. Like whatever that looks like, it probably has Trevon Brazile in it. And hey, maybe the emergence of Chandler Lawson has shown us that maybe it doesn't have to necessarily be small ball. Because I think that's kind of the idea we had all along was Trevon Brazile at the 5. But it comes down a little bit to the defensive end, I think. And I think it's going to be sustainable because we've talked about this before as well, that SEC doesn't have a ton of loaded big men. I know Tolu Smith's there. I know that you got guys at other schools, but it's not like Arkansas is going to have those matchups. Like they've already played Kyle Filipowski and Zach Edey. If those big men didn't really give them trouble, and I know they didn't go small against them a ton, but it's like, we talked all offseason about how big of an issue this front court is. And, to an extent, it's not like it's the most, foolproof situation ever, but I feel a little bit better about just, especially with Chandler Lawson, the defensive levels he shows every now and then, especially in some of these matchups. Like, I think he's a huge key for this. And then offensively, I mean, we look at that last night. I mean, obviously it's Abilene Christian, but the shot making and the energy that those guys bring, and I think really the key is Tremont Mark and Caleb Battle, the chemistry, the rapport that they have a little bit. It seems like they've developed that and taken it up a notch here lately. I think that's huge for that. And we keep mentioning Trevon, and look, guys, we're just as disappointed by Trevon Brazile's season so far as you are, especially on the defensive end. And so, like, I get it if you're like, hey, I'm not 100% sure he's in our top 5 right now. Like, all right, cool. But I think, like you said, we all agree that whatever the best version of this Arkansas team is, it needs to have Trevon Brazile playing well. So I think you have to play him just for that. You know what I mean? Like, I think you have to keep watering that plant and hoping that works. So we'll see how it looks, and we'll see what the 5, we keep saying Arkansas needs to go small, but as we've seen, it can look a little bit different. So we'll see what those 5 pieces end up being. But all in all, that's my long-winded way of saying, yes, Alma, it will. I think it's sustainable. Maybe not for 40 minutes a night, but I think bulk, and I think when this team's closing games, it'll be with a smallish lineup on the floor.
Yeah, and he followed up, Alma did, and said, did Muss find a 7 to 8 man rotation in the second half last night, or will we keep playing rotation roulette? I mean, I'm not going to have any grand takeaways about a good second half against a bad Abilene Christian team. But I do think it's, it's somewhat telling some of the things we saw, like, L-Ellis and Jeremiah Davenport got those starts, but when Arkansas figured it out, neither one of those guys are on the floor. You didn't see as much of Layden Blocker last night. Mekhi Mitchell, what he played, I think he played like 8 minutes and he was -9. It was one of those games where he was kind of all over the place. But I think you saw, maybe some guys start to emerge a little bit. And I think he's definitely got a better idea of maybe who he can trust going into this Wilmington game as they get closer to SEC play. But do I think anything's, fully decided and settled and they're just ready to roll with, their top 7 or 8 heading into league play? No, I don't think that at all. So the reason is because we need to see it consistently, right? I mean, just the other day we were talking about how Battle's got to figure it out. And, is T-Mark better off the bench? And what do they do with Chandler Lawson? Should they be starting Jalen Graham instead? And now we have a completely different idea here today. And so it'll probably change after this next game. So I thought there were some good things there, but certainly they've still got some things to work out. And I think we need to see it more consistently before we really make any definitive declarations there. Another one for you, Andrew. Oklahoma Hog. He says, how does Menifield change the look of the team in your opinion? Boy, I can't wait to hear your answer on this.
Well, a lot. I mean, honestly, and hey, I want to shout out to our guy, John Neighbors, who about 2 weeks ago, do you remember, he texted and was like, hey, you think, how nice would it be to have Keyon Menifield? And we kind of downplayed it. We were like, we love Keyon Menifield, but we didn't think he was going to change this rotation, this lineup on a dime the way he has. But I think it starts with the energy. And that's one thing that Musselman mentioned a lot. He used that word a lot. And Keyon brings that as much as anybody. I mean, the way he's been playing hard, like that's, if he's given that effort, Max, every night, then he's a no-brainer for this rotation and potentially even the starting 5. He had 4 turnovers last night, but I do think his ball handling is a huge deal for this team, especially because you don't have, we've talked about it so much, like you don't have that go-to like point guard. So it's going to be a little bit by committee. And I think he's a very, qualified member of that committee. If you're going to go point guard by committee, again, I don't know if I want Keyon Menifield as like the one on my team. Like he's guaranteed the point guard, but I think in the second half, especially, I really like just the pressure he puts on a defense with his athleticism. He gets the ball moving. I mean, he had 6 rebounds last night, which I thought was huge. And when he's getting a defensive rebound, it's a completely different situation than when even L-Ellis or Layden Block or even Deeb or whoever, like when he gets those defensive rebounds, it feels like it turns into a very advantageous position for Arkansas. And so, it's funny is he's like 0 for 5 from 3 since he started this season. If he's able, and I don't remember what he shot last year at Washington, like low 30s from 3, right? Like somewhere in that range. Like if he ends up being just a serviceable 3-point shooter with his athleticism and the way he plays and the way he puts pressure on defenses, and I really like his passing ability as well. So it's like, I think Arkansas might have something with Keyon Menifield, man. And I loved the way Muss was talking about him last night, about how he used to watch his Pac-12 games when he would get home and would be waking up Danielle to tell her, hey, watch this kid. Like, I think you can tell Muss really likes him. And so he probably had higher expectations for Keyon Menifield than we did, which I think it's kind of starting to show now that he's available, that you see him, the way that he's thrust in. I think that says a lot about the way they view him and maybe the way they view some of these other guards as well. But I definitely think he brings a dimension that, if nothing else, puts a lot of pressure on these other guards to step up. And if you're Debo and you're L-Ellis or whoever, you have to be looking over there like, hey, I got to match this guy's energy. because this guy's bringing it. And so I think he's injected a little bit of life into this lineup for sure with his athleticism, if nothing else.
Yeah, for sure. Playmaker, plays with just awesome pace, good attitude. I thought it was really telling that Chandler Lawson said after he was asked about him after the game, and he said, I just felt like he brought the team together on the floor. Well, that's crazy. It's his second game playing with these guys, and so that's pretty high praise. And I thought it was, a pretty good sign of trust that it is his second game, and you've got these guys who've been establishing themselves for a couple months, and then Keyon gets the start in the second half there and takes advantage of it. So yeah, I mean, a lot of good stuff from him. Let's see. We've got Razorback in Arizona, who I met in the Bahamas, by the way. So hope you're doing well. She says, TB, any indication as to what's going on there? Let's say the season continues as it started for him. Do you think he still tries to go pro or opts to come back for one more year? I mean, I think TB's probably going to go pro after this year. I mean, he could have, this season, I think he came back to, prove himself and improve his stock. And I still think ultimately he will. With him right now, it's interesting. I think some of it was that ankle injury. I mean, it was, at that point where he rolled his ankle that he's really had a kind of a poor 3 games here. And so, yeah, I think that's impacted it some. You say he's healthy or not.
I'm sure there's no coincidence, Curtis.
Yeah, I mean, of course. And, there's also something to be said for a guy coming back off of a major injury like that. There usually is a point in the season where you kind of hit a wall and need a little bit of a reset. That doesn't mean he's still hurt or he's not 100%. But it impacts you. And if you think about it, it's been a couple years since he's played in this many games for this long of a stretch. So I tend to think TB is going to be fine. I think this break here is going to do well for him. Take a few days off, maybe get a little bit more rehab and then come back reset and rejuvenated. But yeah, when they get back on the floor, there's still things he needs to work on. I mean, think about how impactful he was defensively early in the season, blocking and altering everything. He was actually racking up some steals. We haven't seen as much of that lately. And we all want to see him get more assertive on the offense. And listen, I don't want to see it with him, taking 2 dribbles middle from the perimeter and turn around and passing the ball out or pulling up jumpers. Get that man involved in some ball screens. I think Arkansas could do a better job of running some sets to get him to his spots. And he needs to be upwards of 10 plus shots per game. But yeah, disappointing right now. I think he's going to be okay. And I think he's out of here after this year, if you ask me. Let's see. Cody. No, it's another small ball question. We kind of already touched on that.
Yeah, only ask the cool ones, Curtis. Tell everyone.
Yeah. I didn't pre-screen these, so I want to make sure we don't double dip.
What's our producer doing? Why is our producer not on?
Yeah, what's going on here? Who is that? Do we do that? Let's see. Oh, here's a pretty good one. Yeah, Lil VZ has a few questions here, but there's some good ones. We'll start with one for you. What's the prediction for SEC finish at this point? You don't have to go 1 through 14, but just based on what you've seen throughout the country right now, who do you think is kind of at the top of the pecking order?
Well, Bama did not look great. They were fine in the first half, just completely fell apart. There's not a juggernaut in the SEC this year, I don't think. I guess Kentucky is the closest thing to that. I mean, they just seem like they check most of the boxes, but Alabama last year is a team that I would consider a juggernaut, where it's like night in, night out. It was rare when they lost. Like, there's not a team in the SEC that I really get that feel about. So that's why, I'm not saying Arkansas is going to finish like top 3 or anything, but I think Arkansas, the SEC is in a weird spot where there's a ton of parity. And so it's like, I think teams like 2 through 9 are kind of all in that same mix. And so if Arkansas finishes 9th, okay. If they finish 5th, I won't really be stunned to see a ton of fluctuation there and see it. I could see there being a nice little log jam in the middle of the SEC standings, but I still, given the way that Arkansas's schedule starts off, I think that Arkansas is going to get off to a decent start in SEC play. I still have them finishing top 5 in the SEC in terms of just conference record. I think they will. We'll see. And, the games in March are really going to be the ones because they're going to have to go to Bama and to Kentucky. But I really like that they don't have to take those trips until later in the year. And so, I guess you could talk yourself into the idea that Arkansas is going to be kicking into the gear right around there. And, again, it's really hard to evaluate because it's like we can all we can do is evaluate what we've seen, and what we've seen is a bunch of crap. And so who knows? If the team that has been showing up here these last couple of weeks, and even the team that showed up yesterday, if they show up to SEC play, maybe I feel a little bit differently. But I'm still kind of in that 10 to 12 win range. I think Arkansas is going to be in that ballpark, I would say.
Yeah, I think we're on the same page there. I mean, I don't see this as an SEC where a team goes 16-2 this year and runs off and wins the league. I just don't. Yeah, I mean, Kentucky, I think has probably been the most impressive, but they got by the UNC Wilmington team that's coming to Bud Walton Arena here next Saturday. So, yeah, they're vulnerable. Heck, honestly, like maybe Auburn has. I mean, they've looked really, really good.
Yeah.
Which is a little bit of a surprise to me, but yeah, I mean, Bama's 6-5, Texas A&M was highly ranked, and they've had some struggles.
Yeah.
So
A&M's going to end up
Tennessee
being
too.
good. They'll end up being
They
good,
will.
but I agree. Like all these teams have shown chinks in the armor where it's like,
Right.
do you feel super confident in any of them to be surefire like top 5 NCAA tournament seeds? Not really.
Not at all. No, not at all. Another one here, man. I've been waiting for this one. I saw it earlier today. I want to get your thoughts on it. Why does Jalen Graham do the too small celebration every time he scores? What do you think about that?
I don't know, because it's funny because sometimes he does it and he'll hit like a floater. And I'm like, a floater's not a power move, man. Like because he's kind of a finesse big. That's what's funny
Exactly.
about it. I think it's kind of funny. I mean, the guy who really, when I think of the too small, like Russell Westbrook is the one who I feel like really launched that into prominence, which again is funny because Russell Westbrook's 6'3", so it's not even like he's a huge dude. So I don't have a problem with it. It is kind of funny, especially when you average like 4 and 3. The fact that you're doing any set, it's kind of funny, but I don't have a problem with it. Let the boys be boys, you know?
Yeah, to me it feels like if Adama Sanogo puts Jalen Graham in the rim, he does the too small thing.
Right.
Not if Jalen Graham, makes a jump hook
I'll tell
over
you
the
what I
top
hate,
of
Curtis.
a 6'6"
My
dude.
pet peeve is when there's a switch. And like, say Mekhi Mitchell gets posted, he's posting up like a 6'3" guard. And if he does the celebration, then it's like, yeah, that's why we ran that action and got you that match. Like that was how it was. It's better when it's like the two guards and it's like he kind of bullies him a little bit. It's not cool when you get a switch. Do not do the too small celebration because, like, yeah, we know you're 6'9" and the guy you're guarding you 6'2". Like, he's literally too small. Like, we know that.
Agreed. One more from Razorback in Arizona says, not really a question, but just want to say I love the energy Davenport brings on the court and on the bench. Every shot of him from the bench last night had him clapping and cheering on his teammates.
Correct opinion.
Yeah, 100%. Like we've been all over that, even when he wasn't playing as much earlier in the year. His energy, his attitude, it never wavers, whether he's playing or not. And this team needs that. And for a while there, they've needed it on the floor. And I think that's why he's continued to play, even when he hasn't been knocking down shots the way people expected him to or whatever. But yeah, man, that energy is infectious. And last night I noticed it, and you weren't seeing it so much early on there from the other guys. But man, when you got the dude right beside you who's up and cheering and clapping and yelling and screaming for his teammates the entire time, slowly is like, the guy right beside him was getting up and joining him, and the guy to the other side. And then before you know it, it was the entire bench. And that's exactly what they need. So yeah, big energy vibes from Davenport.
Hey, Musselman deserves some credit for that. And look, I feel like we've been very critical of Eric Musselman these last couple of weeks, just because, we're frustrated with this team and the way they're playing and frustrated with some of these trends. But it's like, obviously we don't view Eric Musselman in any negative light. Like he's an awesome coach. I think one thing he doesn't get enough credit for actually is the fact that that's a consistent theme. Because, think about Kamani Johnson. That was like his claim to fame is like, oh, he never played, but he was always bringing that energy off the court. And then when he would get on the court, he was ready to bring that same energy. He mentioned L-Ellis last night as a guy who he would look over and he didn't play. He played 5 minutes or whatever it was and didn't play at all in the second half. And him and Jeremiah Davenport are kind of the ringleaders on the bench. I think that's a huge difference maker for your team. And credit to those guys individually for not, pouting or whatever. But I think those are the things that people like undersell sometimes of like, if you have those, everyone's been on a sports team where there's a disgruntled guy who's like not getting the playing time he wants. And he's pulling guys aside like, oh, I should really be playing, I should really be in there. Those kinds of things like tear teams apart way more than people realize. And so I think that's something that year in, year out, I've kind of gotten used to seeing is Arkansas's bench players are very engaged, very, they're all standing up. They're all involved in every timeout. And I think that's kind of stuff speaks volumes to what this coaching staff is doing for sure.
For sure. Cody 8811 says, if it is our foundation from here on out, is it realistic to still think that Jalen Graham and Trevon Brazile at the 4 and 5 together could be something that we can use? It was interesting last night. They started with Trevon and Chandler Lawson, and then they were running Graham and Mekhi together. But it might have been the last show. It wasn't the last show. It was the one before where I said offensively, I'm probably the most intrigued by Graham and Brazile, because I think based on what you're looking for or what you need out of Trevon, you can run those guys interchangeably at the 4 or the 5. I would love to see more of that particular lineup personally. And I could sit here and say, like, I don't know how it would hold up defensively, but maybe not in Chandler Lawson's case, but I think Jalen Graham is a better defender right now than Mekhi Mitchell. So him and TB, I mean, I don't know. I'm up for it.
Also, like, we always act like, oh, like we're giving up so much on defense by putting in this offensive lineup. How many college basketball teams are really good enough offensively to exploit you in that situation, And a lot of times what you see is like teams that try to, like, I remember Isaiah Thomas for the Celtics, the 5'9" guy. When they played the Wizards in the playoffs, they kept posting up Otto Porter against Isaiah Thomas, and Otto Porter would miss these like turnaround post hooks. It's like when you're going out of your way to try to exploit matchups, it's like you're almost getting out of your comfort zone. It almost takes you out of your flow. And so I think that it's one of those things where I agree that Graham is not nearly as bad defensively as he was last year, and just the gap between him and the other bigs is just not what it was before. I mean, especially Mekhi, who we could argue has really struggled on defense this year. And so I'm not as worried about it. And Trevon's defense is, I guess, the most concerning part to me, but we've seen him defend at a high level. We've seen him block shots and like show, tools on the defensive end. And so with anything, it's just a matter of kind of getting that feel and getting that flow with whatever group it is. So I'm definitely not ruling out those two guys as the starting front court or finishing front court, whatever you want to call it. But ultimately, the only way I'd push back is Chandler Lawson looks so good. I don't know how you can like reasonably cut into, justify cutting into his minutes too much. But, we've talked about the idea of maybe bringing him off the bench and all that. So, but ultimately, yes, I'm all in for that duo in the front court.
What's interesting is we talk about cutting into Chandler Lawson's minutes, but he was like in single digit minutes the last couple games, and they finally let him rock a little bit. But if you look at the cumulative stats for the season, like him, Mekhi, and JG are all pretty much exactly the same. So it's just basically there's two of them every night, and one of them kind of gets left out if you look at it. And hey, if that's the way it's going to be, that's the way it's going to be. But like, yeah, I mean, if you get the Chandler Lawson of last night, shoot, you got to have him on the floor, man. Same thing when Graham is in his bag, and yeah, Mekhi has his moments too. So I was a little bit, frustrated with the rotation earlier in the week, and I was trying to think, well, okay, maybe you only have room for two of these guys at the center spot, whatever. But I mean, that's not necessarily true. If they can make it work the way they did, what you have to have though is at least one of those guys hooping. So you got to be able to rely on one of them per game, and hopefully they can do that. I've been waiting for this one. All right. We've got VA Beach Hog, and he says, why are you guys so high on L-Ellis? I just don't see it. Now my sample size is just with the Hogs, but you talk them up every show and I don't get it. Well, here's the deal. I would say go back and watch the Purdue game, watch the first 3 games of the season, watch the Duke game, take that sample size of L-Ellis, and then watch the rest of the games with L-Ellis where he has no leash, and he's looking over his shoulder, and he's getting pulled out for every mistake, and he's playing with no confidence, and you will see 2 completely different players, and you will see 2 completely different teams. Now, I'm not saying that he should be starting and playing 30 minutes per game and playing over Keyon Menifield. I'm not saying any of those things, but what I am saying is the proof is in the pudding. When they let him rock and he's playing with confidence, he's a major asset to this basketball team. The way they're using him now is not effective, and it's not helping anybody. It's bad for L, it's a bad look from us, and it's bad for the coaching staff. So either play him and let him play through some mistakes like everybody else on the roster is allowed to, or don't play him at all and move on in your rotation. That's where I'm at with it.
Well, I'm kind of there too, where I'm like, look, if you don't love L-Ellis, like, cool, but I don't think we have a big enough sample size to write him off. And when I say that, I mean, like, in the last 3 weeks, he's played like 12 total minutes. So it's like, even if those 12 minutes were horrible, which some of them really haven't been, like, it's a lot. Like last night, I felt like he just was a net zero. Like he just wasn't out there, and maybe he was too scared to do anything. I don't know. But I don't know how people, like, I guess it's not even that we're like so high on L-Ellis. Like, it's not like we think he's like this star point guard or anything. I think we would agree that Menifield has shown more, especially in these, like, I have no problem with Menifield starting and playing more, but the fact that L-Ellis is not playing at all is what's kind of surprising to me. And look, everyone references Chris Likes. This dude is not Chris Likes. He's just not. And look, my dad's about to walk in here. Hey, Dad. Anyways, L-Ellis, this isn't a Chris Likes situation where he can't defend at all, and like maybe he just doesn't translate to the SEC. Like we've seen L-Ellis prove it against good teams, like you've mentioned. And I know Chris Likes had some big games at Miami, and look, those were on bad teams like L-Ellis has been on. But I really like that we've seen him be productive in an Arkansas uniform, which we really never really saw with Chris Likes outside of free throws at the end of the game. So I agree with you where it's like, the proof is in the pudding, and Arkansas is better when L-Ellis is playing well, which obviously when players play well, the team does well. But I just don't think we've seen what this team can look like with L-Ellis really playing a good portion of the minutes. And so I think when you have as much ball handling and scoring issues and offensive flow issues, it just seems crazy to me that someone as talented as him on the offensive end has just kind of been shut out. But at the same time, we've seen guys fall into this doghouse, and it's hell trying to climb your way out of that doghouse. So we'll see if he's able to do it. And hey, he may never get the opportunity to do it, but I just feel like it's crazy that we've closed the door on it without ever really seeing what could happen there,
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that's
where
and
also the Devo Davis aspect is another thing where it's like we're watching guys who are just as bad, if not worse, play 34 minutes a game. And so look, I love Devo. That's not my point here, but it's like I feel like people have closed the door a little too early, and that's kind of our argument has been. It's not that we're saying like L-Ellis is the best point guard ever, and like he's it's a travesty, but we think that the best version of this team probably includes him in some form or fashion. So it's been surprising to see him shut out so firmly.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's very well said. And obviously it goes without saying, like we're not at practice every day. Like we're not in film with these guys. So we don't know what the dialogue is behind the scenes. Like we don't know if L has a bad attitude or if it's a body language thing. I think it's pretty clear that he has confidence issues right now. On one hand, I would say if I was in his shoes, it would be difficult for me to keep positive morale and a good attitude and be bought in when, I'm headed back to the bench after every mistake and other guys are, kind of allowed to play through it now. So those guys have earned that trust, but still, I get it from both standpoints of it. But yeah, I think we're on the same page. Like either let him play and put some trust in him and see what you got, or move on. But I think what they're doing right now is not doing him any good.
One last point I have on L-Ellis. Think about all of Arkansas's best performances from like a ball distribution standpoint. A lot of them include games where L-Ellis was getting into the paint consistently. And that's one thing that you and I both really love about his game is like, he makes sketchy decisions every now and then. And is he a great shooter? Maybe not. But he seems like he has a knack for just getting into the paint. And getting into the paint is so hard in basketball, especially in college basketball when there's no spacing. So having a guy that's able to get that penetration and collapse the defense, we've seen it affect Arkansas's offense in such a powerful way. And like, it might not even tangibly show up with his stats, and so, I get it. He hasn't had a ton of these games where he's averaging 9 assists or whatever, but we've seen him light it up in that regard. And I just think his ability to break down defenses is something that Arkansas must talked about it last night that they need guys to beat guys off the dribble. They need guys to make those plays. And so, maybe he can do that at a high level for them. Maybe he can't, but I would like to see him get that opportunity, which I just feel like he hasn't.
Yeah. And we're ranting on this here, but I've been going back and forth with people on the board all day. So I came prepared, but it has been interesting to me to just, hear people reason their way through some of it. And, the biggest thing with L last night is like, well, they sent a double team at him and he threw a horrible pass and made a turnover. Okay. He did. And then he got benched for the rest of the game. Let's not pretend that for the next 16 minutes of the first half that Arkansas didn't have 11 other turnovers and the worst offensive performance we've seen all season. So, hey, like if that's the reason for him to sit out the rest of the game, so be it. Menifield had 3 turnovers and 0 points in 8 minutes in the first half. And he's only played in 2 games. He got the start in the second half. Thankfully, because he played his ass off and that was clearly the right decision to make. But my point is kind of where you're at. I don't know that I'd just write him off yet until we get to see a little bit more of a sample size. We've got Jacob D. Gar who says, hey, Curtis, first time listener, long time caller. What in your opinion has made it harder for this team to gel than previous teams? Man, I don't know. I actually do not have.
Are we sure that's a true statement, by the way?
Yeah, I'm not sure if it's a true statement or not. I think man, like if you think back to that team a couple years, last year was just a mess. So I'm not even I don't even consider last year with the injuries, with the freshmen. That was just a weird deal. But I always think back to 2 years ago and that team with the Mude and Audis Tony and all those guys, like they looked as bad or worse at this point in the season, as they did compared to now. Now they hadn't lost as many games yet, but they didn't play the schedule either. But boy, they really figured it out. So I think it's perplexing to Muss though, because from all indications, like he's saying, these guys have been great in practice. They've got high energy. They get along. They hang out off the floor. All the things that you want to hear. But for whatever reason, it hasn't been translating to games. And the only thing I can go back to is they took that L to UNC Greensboro. They got at home in Bud Walton. And I wonder how much that shook their confidence because they turned around. They went to the Bahamas after that. They didn't play well there. And they got off the schneid in the crazy atmosphere against Duke. But I wonder how much that game impacted them in terms of that killer instinct and just, I don't know, losing that swagger for a little bit. I think that's more of it than the team gelling together.
Well, and also last year's team had a weird ability to put it on bad teams. Like early in the season, they were like, even when they were having these weird struggles, they would play a bad team and beat them by 36. And it was like, okay, so it's like their gelling issues weren't as prevalent, I guess. How much, I guess they beat Greensboro last year. And I guess that's another thing is like they avoided some of the weird slip ups they've had. I guess they didn't avoid it when they lost to Hofstra 2 years ago, but I agree. Like, they might not have been as bad from an RPI standpoint, or maybe not their actual record, but that team 2 years ago was bad this time of year. I mean, they were giving up like 96 points to like bad teams consistently. And so it's like, I think that's kind of where I'm at is like, I think we forget sometimes how bad it was these last few years. And look, that's not excusing this year's squad because again, we didn't expect this to happen, but I think people are underselling a little bit like how similar this is to everything we've been saying the last 3 years where we're like, oh, they don't have an identity. Oh, they can't defend. Like, oh, they turn the ball over a lot. It's like, we did all these same bits last year, guys. Like, I'm telling you, we did. You may not remember it. We did it. I promise.
Yeah, 100%. Let's go through a few more on the board and then we'll hop over to the chat. Looks like we got some good ones here lining up maybe for some rapid fire. Z Beeler, he's got a couple good ones here in a row. He says, first, what's your favorite Arkansas win ever, excluding the championship?
We're talking about basketball, right?
We'll stick with basketball.
Okay. Let's see. So I wasn't alive for the title. I'm going to tell you that Kentucky Michael Qualls buzzer beater. That was really good. I'm trying to think. Like, I mean, the tournament wins, the Gonzaga win was cool, but like most of the best tournament wins happened once I became like a real official media member. So it's like I'm not able to I remember when Trey Wade hit 6 threes against Gonzaga or whatever it was, but I also had to work afterwards. So it's like I didn't get to enjoy that one as much. But they beat Florida by like 25 at home when Florida was number 2. I can't remember. I know Madrakus Wade was on that team because I just like vividly remember him in the student section afterwards. But that was a fun one. Like I was really a sucker for those Mike Anderson teams that would like only play well at home, but they would beat someone really good at home. Like those are my favorite, especially because I'm pretty sure that Florida team that they beat by 20 or whatever, they went to Gainesville like 10 days later and lost by 30 at Gainesville. And so it's like, we always joke about like, oh, Bud Walton, is it a 10-point swing? You could argue that year it was a 60-point swing. But so I love stuff like that. But that win against the Michael Qualls buzzer beater, like that was awesome. I mean, beating Kentucky's always cool. The moment, and like that was one where I was excited to go to school the next day because I knew all my buddies saw it, and that was really the key. A lot of like when I was a kid and Arkansas would have success, nobody cared. No one in Louisiana cared, so it was like I didn't get to share it with anyone. But the Michael Qualls dunk, everybody saw that one. So like I got to go to school and be like, all right, y'all see the Hogs, man? That was cool.
Yeah, man. That Qualls moment was incredible. Probably my favorite, before I started working on the beat, me and a couple of my buddies, we drove to Oklahoma City and we saw a Thunder Bucks game. And then it was a Friday night, and then we drove from there to Fayetteville overnight, and it was for that Arkansas, Tennessee game in the Barford-Macon Gafford year, where awesome. They were down, they came back, they got it to overtime, and they won that game in just wild fashion. It was so loud. That game was awesome. That was probably my favorite as a fan, or the rare occasion where the SEC tournament was in St. Louis, and I got to go to that, and we had the Daniel Gafford windmill in the win over Florida, which was pretty awesome there. So yeah, some good ones. But as far as working it, Hinkle beating Texas Tech and kind of breaking that Sweet 16 drought there. That was freaking awesome. Must jumping up on the table. It's just such an historic venue. Like that's one I think that'll always stick with me for sure.
I lied. I want to change my answer. When they beat Oklahoma and Blake Griffin, I was there for that game with my brother. And so fun story. Arkansas went 2-14 in SEC play that year. But I remember me and my brother vividly. We got they handed out towels at that game. So we all had these like towels that we were in. We hung it up like in our room, and we put like a little thing around it, and it was like Arkansas basketball is back. And this is 2009 when they were absolutely not back. They were very front, not back at all. But I remember like that night, you could not have told us anything. And they beat Texas a week later too. It's like they beat 2 top 10 teams in a span of like 10 days and then went 2-14 in SEC play. But in the moment though, that beating Blake Griffin was as satisfying as anything I've ever been to.
I like it. One more from Beeler. He says, who's been your favorite player to cover at Arkansas?
Basketball?
Sure.
Dude, I'm trying to think. Stanley Amude.
Yeah.
Dropped a SHIT in a press conference. I liked him. I loved his game. I saw a question that's coming up later that my answer is going to be Stanley Amude to that as well in terms of, we'll get to it. But Stanley Amude, I love that guy, man. And like, he was, the way we're talking about L-Ellis, that's how we used to talk about Stanley Amude because he was getting buried on the bench 2 years ago. Like during all these struggles that we're talking about, he was kind of the one, like he was the piece that I would argue turned that 2021 season around, or I guess it was 2021, 22. Getting him going was kind of the key to that season. And I think Trevon Brazile is that guy for this year. But Stanley Amude, just his personality, his game, and just everything. He was, and I've only been covering Arkansas basketball for 3 or 4 years, so it's not like I have a huge sample size, but I love Stanley Amude, and I check the Pistons box score every night to notice that they've lost again, and I see what Stanley Amude is up to.
Yeah. Boy, I'd have to flip a coin, I think, between a couple guys from my first year, Jalen Tate and Justin Smith. I loved those guys. Just, I mean, great interviews, always gave thoughtful answers. They were mature. They were leaders. Really, really enjoyed both of those guys. But I got to give an honorable mention to JD Note. He was terrible in interviews his first year, but he came a long way his second year. Started showing a little bit of swag and a little bit more personality, and just his dynamic and relationship with Muss and the way that he was able to kind of convey that in those press conferences it was a lot of fun. So those are 3 guys that I really liked. If I had to pick one to actually answer the question, I'd probably go Justin Smith. He was the man. Okay, let's get just a couple more on the board and then we'll move on. I thought this was interesting though. You're going to have to listen to me though, because it's kind of a lengthy one. Augustus Caesar says, what is the biggest Achilles for this Arkansas team? I will not accept all of the above. It's got 4 options. 1, lack of consistent point guard play. 2, lack of consistent big man play. 3, inability to stop the dribble drive. Or 4, transition offense and defense. Biggest Achilles.
Of those 4, I'm going to go 3. I think simply not being able to keep anyone in front of you seems like a bad thing to have going for you. But honestly, I feel like, and you agree, I think that the rotation is a bigger like stain, because I think that's one that like they have to figure that out. Like they you'd like to be able to stop guys, you'd like to be able to play some defense here and there. But I'm of the belief that college basketball teams, they're all bad. So I think you're going to get rewarded for being bad at defense more often than you realize. If you don't believe me, watch any of Arkansas's NCAA tournament wins over the last few years. But no, I really do think that like it's harder to overcome it if like your rotation is horrible, which I think it is right now, than if your defense sucks. Even though, I think Arkansas is going to make some progress on the defensive end, and frankly, they kind of already have a little bit. But yeah, stopping the dribble drive of those 4 options, that's an issue, man. And I think that's going to end up being their downfall when it's all said and done. Whenever that downfall may be. It may be in the Final Four, it may be tomorrow. I don't know. One of those 2.
Yep, I'm with you on that one for sure. Oklahoma Hog says, what does Devo have to do to get it going offensively? Saw him make big strides and get a lot of praise from Muss for his defense last night, waiting for him to kick back into the Devo we watched for 4 years. Okay, I'm going to address the defense first. Okay, and I promise I'm not trying to be overly critical here, but he guarded Abilene Christian's power forward. Okay, like awesome. I mean, if we want to hang his jersey in the rafters for that, then we can do that. But he was getting blown by their guards the entire first half. So it was a great adjustment. It was huge. It was key and critical to the win because it allowed Arkansas to play that small ball lineup. So that was great. It was a huge impact that he made. But he's still got a lot of work to do to get back to where he is and up to his standards as an on-ball perimeter lockdown defender, which is what Arkansas needs. In terms of him getting it going offensively, he's just got to make some shots. Like, he's not turning the ball over, which is great. He's got a better than 2-to-1 assist to turnover ratio right now, which is awesome. But he's got to make shots, man. I mean, he's shooting 35% from the field. He's shooting 23% from three. That's about in line with where he was this time last year before he turned it on. So he's just got to do the same thing. I mean, what happened last year? He started shooting that thing with confidence. Muss was talking about how he was in the gym taking, 3,000 shots a day or whatever. If he's not doing that now, start doing it, man. I think for him, it's as simple as getting back to what he's capable of defensively and just making shots.
Well, and honestly, Curtis, did he even attempt a three last night?
Nope. 0 for 4 from the field.
I didn't think he did. I know he didn't take a ton of shots, period, but there's been like at least 7 or 8 occasions this year where he gets the ball kicked to him on the perimeter, and I'm like, oh, put it up. That's the good 3-point shot you want. And like, he just doesn't take it. And look, again, maybe that's just Devo like purposely trying not to. I don't know. I'm not going to ask questions on Devo anymore. I've been doing it for 4 years, and I'm sick of it. I don't know what it is that determines whether or not Devo is going to play well or not. But I agree, like shooting it with confidence, man. Just like put those shots up, and we agree that he's due for some progression with the law of averages on the 3-point shots. So I think you need to speed it up. Just take 7 next game and see what happens. Like I really think like, I'm not saying he needs to be chucking, but I think Arkansas's some of their best offensive performances, they'll finish the game like 9 for 18 from 3. And I'm like, why'd y'all stop at 18? Like, y'all shouldn't, like why? I think last night they were 7 for 15. I'm like, how do you end up being 7 for 15 and you don't take more? And a lot of those came in the second half, I know, but it's like, I think that Arkansas needs to be making, like, Devo has to be a spot up threat. And if he's not a spot up threat, then he really isn't bringing anything offensively. And so I think it comes down to the 3-point shooting, which that was kind of the big thing last year. He didn't have to be that good, but I think he has to be some type of a threat. And right now he's not a threat from the outside, which is a far cry from what we've seen in the past.
A quick nugget on Devo. I don't know if you noticed this or not, but I found it interesting. Against Lipscomb over the weekend, he scored the first basket of the game, and then he scored the last one on that. His next basket was that, runner, whether it was good shot selection or not, who knows, but there towards the end. And then in this game,
I could not believe he took that shot.
And then in this game last night, he didn't score, period, until getting fouled there at the stretch and knocking down those free throws. So I get it in terms of, trying to figure out what his role is with new guys. Like, dude, we're 12 games into the season now, and he's the 4th-year senior. He's the returner. He's the leader. So he should be asserting himself the way he best sees fit, and the other guys should be fitting in around him. Is kind of where I'm at with it. But anyway, over to the chat here, and let's run through these and see what we have. Let's see. Honcho says, who wins in a winner-take-all game? The 91 Hogs with Todd, Lee, and Big O, or the 94 champs?
91 team. I don't know. I guess we'll go with the team that won the national title, but winner take all. I don't know. I actually do got to think the 91 team might beat them. And then this is coming from a guy who was not alive for either of these teams. So I'm basing this off of nothing, but I don't know. I really do. I love that 91 team. And I feel like my brother is older than me. That's kind of a team that he really loved too. But I don't know. The 94 team, I watched that, what's the name of that movie they released? That little VCR, you know what I'm talking about? It's like the kind of like the championship movie. I forget what it's called. It's like, it might even be called Hog Heaven, but I've watched that movie probably 170 times. So I have that 94 season memorized. I love that team.
Yeah, that was an awesome team. I mean, I was I was alive, but I was like 3 and 6 for those seasons.
So you have a good perspective on it. That makes okay.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, give me 94. Give me the champs. We'll roll with the champs because they're the champs, so they ain't the champs no more. You know,
until proven otherwise, nobody was going to beat that team.
That's right. We got a shout out from our guy Kingsley, says
Merry
Hoop Hogs
Christmas,
Holiday
Kingsley.
with the homies. Merry Christmas. We appreciate you, brother. Merry Christmas to you and yours. Let's see. What do we got here? A lot more questions on L. I think we covered that one, didn't we?
Yeah, I think we've covered L-Ellis. Our stance has been made clear.
James M came through, said Merry Christmas, Curse and Andrew. Thank you. Thank you. Likewise. Merry Christmas to everybody. We appreciate you guys for tuning in. I love these mailbag
I was
episodes.
also wondering, I wonder how people are tuning in if like, I mean, I'm sure there's obviously we see how many people are here live, but I'm wondering if anyone's listening and this is Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, you're tired of being around your family. We appreciate you listening too. I guess you won't be listening for a few more days, but I love it.
For sure. Hopefully, if you guys are traveling or driving, you got your kids in the back seat or whatever, you can just turn this on and tune them out for a couple hours while you get to where you're going. So
yeah, if you're listening now and you missed the beginning of the show, just wait till you're on the road with your wife and throw this on. That's what she's gonna love it.
That's right. That's right. One more for Honcho. This was on the message board thread too. He says updates on our 2 recruits. I'm assuming he's talking about the 2 signees Arkansas has for 2024. That's Jalen Shelley and Isaiah Elohim. Shelley, I mean, he's at Link Academy right now. He's kind of a key cog for him there, but he's not putting up numbers that are jumping off the page. I think he's having a similar year to what Jordan Walsh had with those guys. I mean, there's a ton of talent, a bunch of D1 guys on there and 5-star players. So he's blending in around really good players. And so I think that's what you want to see, him do when he comes to Arkansas. So some pretty good stuff so far from Shelley. Elohim's been out with an injury. Hopefully he gets back there soon and can help Sierra Canyon, but really don't have much of an update on him because he just hasn't really been playing.
We'll be in LA next week to scout him. We're gonna go see him.
Yeah, we'll go check him out. And it'd be cool if we could go to Link and watch Shelley play, but they never play there. Like they have that national schedule, so they travel over the country.
I've looked up their schedule before doing the same thing where I'm like, oh, let me check them out. It's like never anywhere near us.
Right. Let's see. Get a little rapid reaction here. We got Raphael Johnson says Keyon is the key. He might be, man. He's certainly
Keyon.
Yeah, he's certainly the key to getting those guys to play with pace. That's been refreshing to see. It's almost like he's so much faster.
Man.
I know. He's just so much quicker and faster than everybody else. It's almost like his teammates are thinking like, damn, I gotta move, man. Like this guy's a blur. I can't just stand here. So yeah, I mean, it's definitely been good for him. Honcho says Chandler Lawson will lock up Broome.
Yeah, I'm excited. Hey, but those Auburn games are going to be fun, man. Auburn, dude, no matter how good Auburn is, I always think they're worse, no matter what.
Me too. Yeah, me too. I mean, in fairness,
they're pretty good this year.
They do. In fairness, Mekhi Mitchell locked up Broome twice last year. So if he can do it, he could do it again.
Lawson, we've seen him accomplish greater feats than that.
Yeah, exactly.
This is light work. That might not even be Auburn. Might not even be a game Chandler Lawson gets up for. He only gets up for the big ones, Abilene Christian, Duke. I mean, those kind of games.
Ty Langston 44 says Brazile plays soft. He's not a real big man. Only good for dunks and wide open threes. He does play soft. He is not a real big man.
I think those are 3 accurate statements.
And the way he's used in the offense right now, he's only good for dunks and wide open threes. This is true. So,
but to be fair, dunks and wide open threes are very good things.
I'll take those.
So I would take a bigger sample size of those things if we can make that work. But look, I'd love to push back Ty, but I can't right now. I've defended Trevon a lot, and I will continue to defend Trevon because I'm a huge believer in his upside. But whether it's the injury, whether it's whatever, he's out of sync completely, and we'll see how it plays out. But don't sell your stock just yet.
Hunter Ratio says, I can't wait for conference play. I have a feeling we'll play better against a higher level of competition. I mean, outside of the Bahamas where, well, I mean, I guess in fairness, Arkansas played what's turned out to be a really good Memphis team. really well in that game. It was a 5-point game, on the second day of a back-to-back, and Arkansas had just played a double overtime game. They played really well in that one. They had nothing left in the tank for North Carolina. So, I think they kind of rise to the challenge that their competition poses, and sometimes it's to their detriment. But yeah, they'll be playing better teams in SEC play, and if they get up for it like they did, Duke and some of those other games, I agree. I think they'll play. I think they'll play a lot better. I'm anxious to see how they look on the road, though, in a true road environment. I mean, they've played
Still
like
no
a half
road games,
dozen neutral sites, but it's different when you're in hostile territory. What's their first actual? I think they get their feet wet with, I think it's Georgia.
Yeah,
So
I think you're right.
that's a perfect road opener. Because
maybe this team is road warriors.
Maybe they are.
Maybe they're not neutral warriors, but they are road warriors. So maybe that's just going to be what unlocks this team.
Exactly. Kingsley says story time request, Coach Kurt ejection story. I know there's got to be at least one. Yes, there is one.
There's precisely one.
Yeah, there is one ejection story that I have. Ironically enough, I got tossed from a game by the same guy who tossed Muss out of the BOK Center the first time, not the most recent one. But yeah, I mean, it really wasn't that exciting of a story. Like, I wish I, freaked out and threw a chair across the court. I thought about it, but I didn't. But I didn't even get to use a 4-letter word. Like, I didn't even get to cuss at the guy. But it was my rookie year as a coach, and I felt like I wasn't getting the respect from the officials that I deserved. Our point guard got a technical foul, and I was asking for an explanation, and the official just continued to ignore me for whatever reason. I don't know why, but finally I was able to get his attention, and it ticked him off, and he gave me a technical foul. And I said, it's good to know that you're not deaf, because it's very clear that you're blind. And he gave me the second tech and convened with the guy at the scorer's table, and they tossed me out of the game. So that was that. But what sucks about it,
cuss word is tough.
I know, man. And what sucks about it is in the NAIA, if you get tossed, you got to sit the next game. So then I had to sit at the top of the bleachers and watch the next game, which we lost. And so it was just it was a frustrating ordeal. But yeah, that's the story. Maybe the guy's got a quick trigger because he sent Muss out of there. Well, never mind.
Muss earned his, though.
He earned it.
Doing you justice. That's what it was.
Okay, we've got just a handful more. We've rocked through them pretty good here. Chris Corley says, do you guys ever see Pinion getting frustrated enough with lack of playing time to hit the portal?
Sure.
Yeah. I mean,
you mean the guy who's not playing at all? Maybe.
Right. That's kind of the nature of the beast here. And it's not specific to Pinion. I mean, that's just how it works now. Like, if you don't play where you're at, you go somewhere else. So I was semi-surprised that he didn't leave this past off season. Yeah. And that doesn't mean that I want him to, because I like Joe a lot, and I think he's gotten better. But yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised by that at all.
I don't know if we're supposed to say this, but it's like, I think anyone who's not a regular in your rotation, if they have extra eligibility, you should probably not expect them to come back. And like, look, maybe they will. Like, Pinion came back this year. Like, I'm sure there's going to be, like, I'm expecting Blocker and Fall to probably come back. But it's like, I don't think you should be stunned if any of those dudes that aren't in the rotation leave, because it's like, because, back in the day, we used to view college sports through a lens of like, hey, if you play X amount as a freshman, you'll play X amount as a sophomore, and then Y amount as a junior, and then Z amount as a, and it's just not that way anymore, So it's like, if you're not playing consistently, it's like, it's hard to break into that, because the normal, the seniors are graduating, and now it's that just doesn't exist. So it's tough to gauge what it's going to look like year to year. But yeah, probably go ahead and say your goodbyes.
Yeah. I mean, you've got 14 SEC teams, and you have 9 4-year players, 9 guys in the entire league who've been at their school for 4 years. I mean, it's just
hug your favorite role player lightly, because hug them tight, because you never know when these role players might just dip out.
It's crazy. We can take this in a couple different directions. So Honcho says, what Razorback coach you taken to win you one game? Let's just go Razorback coaches in general of all sports. I'll let you take that one, because I know exactly where you're going to go with it.
Probably Sam Pittman. Sutton, I don't know. Eddie Sutton probably, but I don't know. If it's one game, Curtis, I actually do think I would take Eric Musselman. Crazy enough. Like if you gave me a month to prepare for it, if it was like one thing, if you say it's one season, I'm gonna go Nolan Richardson, or I'm gonna go Eddie Sutton, Nolan Richardson like all day, just because, you know. But if it's one game and we get a week to prepare and we really get to scout, I mean, we've talked all the time about how detailed these scouting reports are. I think when it comes down to one game, Eric Musselman might be the best at coming up with a game plan. But I think if you're going with a season, there's like 5 guys we're probably going with over. Like I think Nolan Richardson is the de facto. But I mean, Eddie Sutton, I guess he's the best coach that's ever coached at Arkansas, technically, right? Like I'd have to really go through and look at it, but like on paper, he's got like 7 different courts named after him. So I'd imagine,
Right.
you know how good he is. He's honored by like 5 different places. You know, like Oklahoma State obviously named their court after him, but it's like Sutton. It's not like Arkansas doesn't claim Eddie Sutton. Like they claim him. But yeah, I don't know. Probably Sutton. Is that a boring answer?
No, not at all.
I'd give Pelfrey a shot. Just see what he's got.
Wow, man. I think I agree with what you're saying about Muss too. I thought you were going to say Dave Van Horn. I thought you were going to go with DVH, man.
I mean, look, I'd trust Dave Van Horn to do a colon exam. I would trust him to do anything. So I guess basketball might as well do. You know, I'd trust him there too. Sure, why not?
Okay.
You didn't expect Sam Pittman? Why not?
Yeah, that one surprised me a little bit. I'm not going to lie. This is a good question because we like to eat. We talk about it all the time. There's nothing better than sitting down and having someone else cook for you and bring you food. It's awesome. So Ty Langston says, rank your top 5 local Fayetteville restaurants.
Pizzeria Ruby is like
facts.
That's the best place in the world.
Hands down. The place is awesome.
That's the best entity on this planet, regardless of restaurant or Fayetteville. It's the best. Pizzeria Ruby, love it.
Yeah.
I'm not great at this game though. The top 5 restaurants, like
we can just throw out the places we like. We don't have to solidify a top 5. But
I'll tell you what. Honestly, we've been hitting up Flyway a lot lately. The new brewery on I guess it's on Zion.
Yeah, it's on Zion. If you haven't been there yet, Flyway Brewing, which is a Little Rock joint, it has opened a spot in Fayetteville where the old Apple Blossom Brewing was. That place is really good. I mean, obviously, if you like craft beer, that's a good place to go. But their food's really good, man. They've got some great pizza, good burgers, fries, all kind of cheese curds, you name it. They've got duck. If you're a duck fan, you can get some duck there. So
Curtis was very skeptical on whether or not it was real. He asked the waiter. He said, "Is these duck tenders like?" And the guy was like, "Yeah, sure. I don't know."
Yeah, they're duck.
But you did have them, and you did the verdict is it is a real duck.
It is a real duck. Yeah, I've had them again since that time. So they hit the spot. So yeah, that's a really good place.
Obviously, Wrights is in this conversation. I mean, like we could go through. There's all the obvious like Hugo's and like the tourist. I mean, just Google the whatever. But CJ's Butcher Boy Burgers. I know you're whatever, but Feltner's is good. I'll tell you, Parker, we got to give a shout out to our guys at Parker Sports Grill, man. Parker Sports Grill is just, it's the perfect neighborhood bar.
It is.
Especially for me now that I live near that neighborhood. And so we've come to really love Parker's. We used to go there back when it first opened and nobody was there, like ever. So now it's been nice to see. And Parker's does cool like theme stuff too. Like every night they have specials on stuff.
They do trivia. They've got wing night. They've got free pool night. They have a what I don't even know what you call it, but it's like the punching bag machine. You can put a quarter in or whatever and punch the thing and see how strong you are. They've got cheap beer and cheap food, but it's good. Yeah, I love that place. Fayetteville Taco and Tamales right down the road from my house. I'm a big fan of that place. It's been good to me. If you haven't had the skillet nachos, things are good, man. And by the way, for all the restaurants who are hearing this right now, if you want to sponsor the show, hit us up. You know how to get in the DMs.
We'll tell you our favorite next episode, y'all. It's up to them to see who reaches out first.
That's right. That's right. Another good one from Ty. All-time favorite Christmas movie. What you got?
My favorite Christmas movie of all time is The Family Stone. Mostly because I'm the youngest of 5 siblings, and I believe I can't do the math on the fly, but there's like 4 or 5 siblings in The Family Stone. But it's about a family, and it's true. Nobody talks about it. I don't know how it got swept under the rug. Loaded cast too. Rachel McAdams is in it. Luke Wilson, not Owen Wilson. Diane Keaton. Like, it's a great cast, great Christmas movie. If you've not watched it, I highly recommend it. Watch it with your family tonight. You will freaking love it. I'm probably actually going to watch it tonight with my family. Four Christmases, Vince Vaughn, Reese Witherspoon, classic. Christmas Vacation. What you got, Curtis? What's your number one?
Polar Express.
Not
really.
Sam Pittman's catching strays after strays on this show, man. He's gonna. I'm sorry, Sam. Hey, Sam. Hey,
I'm a big Christmas Vacation guy. I love that. I guess this counts, but I'm also huge on Home Alone. Absolutely love Home Alone. It's got a lot of the Christmas theme there, so we'll count it. Is Top Gun a Christmas movie?
I've never seen Top Gun 1 or 2. Didn't see the new one. Didn't see the old one.
I haven't seen the new one yet, but a lot of people argue that it's a Christmas movie. It's a heated debate. I don't know that I carry it away.
Die Hard. People always say. I mean, I've never seen Die Hard either, which so I don't know. Mm-hmm. I don't know where I stand on either of those debates. I just listened to a Rewatchables podcast about Home Alone on the way. I was driving from Arkadelphia to come here today, and me and my girlfriend, we listened to this podcast that just talked about Home Alone. Love it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, awesome. Dude, Christmas movies in general, man, like, it's the best. They're the best.
Yeah. It's very, very relaxed situation. If you could add one player from the last 5 years onto this year's team, Andrew, who would it be and why?
Well, it would be Stanley Amude. I saw this comment pop up, and he was the first one that popped into my brain. One, just for the vibes. A little defensive stability. We're talking about this small ball lineup. If Stanley Amude is your small ball 4, dude, that's big time. And so it's like, look, should I probably get a point guard or a legitimate big man? Maybe, but I don't care. Stanley Amude is who I'm picking, but I know he's the incorrect answer. So give me the right answer, Curtis.
I'd love to have Stan on this team. I mean, it's Justin Smith. For me, I love his
every team is better with Justin Smith.
Like, every team is better
on this planet.
Yeah, 100%. Absolutely love Justin Smith. Jalen Williams would help this team too, but yeah, I'd go Justin Smith for sure.
This team needs some charges. Shout out to Hillary Frank. By the way, Curtis. So I want to let's break the fourth wall here. Hillary Frank is the love of my life, my girlfriend. She is about, I guess, 80 feet away from me at the moment. I appreciate her tuning in. I feel like people watch this show, Curtis, and they have no idea that my girlfriend's smoking hot. Like, people don't know that. Like, they probably think like, oh, his girlfriend's probably. Guys, my girlfriend is smoking, and we appreciate her listening. She's my favorite listener.
Are you trying to compensate for a bad Christmas gift? I'm
about to have to go back into my sister's house where I just left my girlfriend alone for an hour and a half. So maybe that's what I'm going at here, but we'll see.
I like it. Smooth talker, that a boy. No, Hillary is awesome. Absolutely awesome. And she's a fight fan, which is big time. So,
and a graduate of the University of Arkansas.
There you go. Let's see. L-Ellis.
Yeah, a lot of people. Hey, well, you got to answer Myron Rochelle, Curtis. You have to.
Myron Rochelle says, please answer me. Do we have a...
No, they do. Right here. Here we go.
Oh, okay.
Preface with, please answer me.
I was like, well, where's the original question? Okay, I got you. Who is your starting 5 based off the last team from the past 4 years? Go.
So, okay, Justin Moses Smith. Moody counts, right? Because he's last 4 years.
Yeah.
So maybe Moses Moody at the 2, 3. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Who's our point guard? JD Note?
Yeah. Note's got to be in there.
Note at the 1. Amude he's in mine. I don't know if he's in everyone else's, but
yeah,
maybe him and Moody as like the 2, 3, 4. Maybe you throw in another wing here. Dude, imagine. Okay, so if JD Note is our point guard and we have Amude and Moody on the wings, is there another wing we can throw in that would just make that the most tantalizing 2 through 4? Because you think about it, Amude is like 6'8". Moses Moody is obviously in the NBA. He's like 6'6", 6'7". Like that's some length. That's some size. Like if you had maybe Aldi's Tony, I guess you could throw in there because he's another like big guy, but I'm sure there's another there. Yeah. There's someone we got to be forget, like someone obvious that we're missing.
You could throw Tony in there. I mean,
Anthony Black. You throw Anthony Black on this team? Yeah, I mean, I love Anthony Black,
Maybe.
but I'm just wondering, like, I'm just trying to think of like the skill sets of how it would play out. If you had 4 other shooters, I would love having Anthony Black on this team. But I feel like if you have Anthony, it changes who you pick for other things. I guess Jalen Williams is probably our big man.
Yeah. Jay Will's the big man. Justin Smith's the 4.
Moses, Amude and Moody.
Yeah.
Moody.
That'd be fun,
Mote.
man. That'd actually be a lot of fun.
Nasty.
Yeah, that'd be a
that
good
team wins the G League championship this year.
Facts, hands down. Speaking of G
there's
League,
like 3 actual NBA players on that team, so that probably makes sense. But
Ricky Council and Jordan Walsh are just cooking in the G League.
I'm telling you, the G League is not real, dude. I'm just telling you right now, whatever numbers you see from the G League, they're all fake. Everybody scores 39 a game in that.
It's
nuts, I don't know,
man. It's absolutely nuts. Okay, let's see. We got to get one more here.
Yeah, one more good one.
Do you think we should go inside more to Jalen Graham? Yes, I do. Yes, I do. Sure. Daniel Shee, our guy, says, who has the better Christmas attire? Enjoy your Christmas, guys. Shee, brother, thank you.
Dude, Daniel Shee's the man. If people do not know who Daniel Shee is, they will soon. He's a student at the University of Arkansas studying journalism. I'm telling you guys, this guy is going to make it, man. Simply because, one, really smart kid, really dedicated, but he gives a crap, man. And he shows up and is not scared of anyone, dude. You've probably heard him ask Sam Pittman questions. He's like 19, just shows up there and he's like, Pittman, offensive line kind of sucks, man. What do you think? And Pittman's like taken back by it. It's the funniest thing ever.
He's got ice water in his veins, man.
Daniel Shee's going to be the man in a few years.
Kingsley says, forget hot dogs. Is a quesadilla a sandwich?
No.
I don't think so.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, if we're calling a quesadilla a sandwich, then everything that has something contained inside of it is a side of it.
Yeah,
you know what
it's
I mean?
like calling a hot pocket a sandwich.
I literally was just about to say, like, a hot pocket, like that a sandwich. Like there's stuff inside of it. Pigs in a blanket. I don't know. Like I feel like it's a slippery slope. I don't care though, man. I'll eat them all.
Speaking of beauties, my wife chimes in. I know she's talking about the Christmas movie. She says, wrong answer. It should be watching Hallmark Christmas movies with my wife. Listen, it's a guilty pleasure of mine. There's so much negativity in this world. There's so much drama and so much emotion in college athletics. Dude, I watch a Hallmark movie like every night, even though I know from the start exactly how it's going to end. It's just there's something about it, no doubt. You watch Hallmark movies?
Trying to tell us that Isaiah Joe and Mason Jones didn't make the list, but are they within the last 4? I think they might be just outside.
Yeah, I think that was his. Well, that was his first team, and this is his 5th season, so I think they're just outside.
Yes, I guess if you're including this year, they're not in. If you include last year, but yeah, Mason Jones would be the one.
Mace would be in there. I don't know if I'd have Isaiah in my 5.
I think I would, but only because like I'm such a huge Isaiah Joe fan, man. Like
I am now.
Yeah. Well, he's a lot better player than he was when he was at Arkansas. That's fair. That's fair enough.
Right. Okay.
But man, Isaiah Joe I'm going to see him in person next week. I cannot wait. I love that dude.
I like that. Who are they playing?
Celtics.
Oh, that'll be a good one.
Gonna see your St. Louis boy.
I like that. They don't get buckets in the 3-1-4. In case you were wondering about that one. Okay. I think we did it, man. I think we made it through most of these. So, hey, like we said going into this, this show is going to be as good as you guys make it, and I think it was awesome. So, yeah, appreciate that. Appreciate Andrew for sneaking off to the pool house for a little bit and taking the time to do this. And man, Merry Christmas to you, my brother. Happy holidays to you and to everybody. Appreciate you guys tuning in. If you're doing this live, and there were a lot, this might have been our most viewed show live.
We saw a spike there.
Yeah, there was a spike there, which is really cool. So hopefully that means you guys are not working on this Friday. But hey, if you're catching up later when you're traveling or whatever, we appreciate that too. So thank you guys. Enjoy your Christmas. Enjoy the holidays. And, we'll be back at some point here to talk about who? UNC Wilmington?
I guess the Seahawks, as I learned yesterday.
Whoever's next, that should be an interesting game with no drama at all, right?
Actually, I will say, the UNC Wilmington game is going to be a pretty especially because they're going to have a week to prepare. Got to show up to that one. So next, I guess, I don't know what our schedule will be like next week, but should be an interesting episode leading into it.
Yes, we'll figure it out. And shout out to the crowd actually last night at Bud Walton Arena, because we've been a little bit critical about the light crowds. The students were gone for the holidays, but it was actually a really, really nice crowd, and they were loud and it was awesome. So when you're bad, we're going to let you know about it. But when you're awesome, we're going to let you know too. And last night was a good one. But let's get out of here. Andrew, enjoy your family,
right,
brother. Merry Christmas. Happy holidays. This has been Curtis Wilkerson and Andrew Ellis with Hog Sports, and we'll catch you next time.